back and have a few games that I was going to go over just to show some tactical positions that occurred during the games and just kind of point out certain things. Some of them could have been missed and some of them could have been played. But it'll be a lot of fun to go over these games and just see how some of the positions unfolded and how some of the wins may have occurred. But without further ado, we'll start off with this game, which ended up leading, and it was just a very positional game. Both me and my opponent were playing very positionally, and there were times that yeah, we probably could have taken a pawn a little bit sooner than we did or whatever. But for the most part, this game was just very positionally based and very tactical. And it started with e4, e5. And we started going into like an Italian or a Russian game. I'm not sure which variation this one was, but so it looks like it was going into more of a Russian than the Italian, but they kind of have nuances of both. And typically in this position, when they play this move, they're trying to transpose into what would be known as a Danish gambit. Um, I don't ever play into the Danish gambit, so because for as black, the Danish gambit can be very bad to play against if you accept it. So I just typically don't accept the Danish gambit. And typically the best move against it is going to be one d5. D5 is typically a pretty good move to play against the Danish gambit. Yeah, we're giving them the pawn back, but it's pawn for a pawn. Not really a big deal. And after this, he's just basically saying, okay, I'm going to defend this so that I can't take, but the problem with it is after playing this, I think I missed it in the game. This is just a fork. Yeah, and so I completely missed it, and I think I saw it right after, but this is a fork. Just if we go back a move, you take, oop, and now uh, white loses a piece. Now he can get it back. Um, so imagine, let's say he does this, we can take here, and I mean obviously queen can't come here, but he can take here, we can develop, and if he takes, then we just move back, or we can even play the fancier variation and just take it and kind of force a trade here. Now he doesn't have to take the trade, but you know, in this position here, yeah, we're given a piece. So let's say he goes ahead and he takes the pawn. We take. Once he comes here, this knight can be lost. And the reason I say that is because even if we play something like this, he comes here. Um, it's very difficult to protect it. Um, yeah, we could play a move like this, which actually isn't a horrible move. It's actually a pretty brilliant move. Because once you play up, there's not much that white can do besides retreat here or here if he wants to retreat. Now he can move here, and then that just runs into a whole lot of other nastiness because then we can, let's say, well, regardless of where he goes, we go here, and he's basically forced to give up a piece. Or, well, I'm sorry, not really give up a piece, but trade a piece. He can take. We trade here, and now we're just kind of up a little bit of material as it is now. 4 pieces to 5. We're still up 1 piece, but our structure is looking a little bit better. I mean, pawn-wise and everything, it's pretty even, and this piece is developed, and this piece is developed. So we've each got 2 developed pieces. Both of our kings are still in the center. So I mean, ultimately, if you look at it, it's going to say black is a lot better, but mostly due to the piece structure or the being up a piece, and that's about it. But going back to the game and what actually ends up happening, since how we did end up missing the fork, you saw that we did play this move. Let's see. And then he went ahead and took, knowing that there was a fork there that was missed, and he goes ahead and castles. I was trying to defend this pawn another time, but I just went ahead and brought it back and then castled, let us trade. And I saw where he was trying to win this, and I could have also brought this knight back instead, but it was fine to come back here and start trying to mount all of my pieces to be able to start coming up to the queen side, or I'm sorry, the king side at some point, and just deliver a really nasty attack. But so he goes ahead and he takes the pawn that had been there for a while that is now free. And now, as you can see, oop, bad arrow. These knights are now protecting each other. I'm also attacking this. And maybe at some point attacking this, or maybe trying to deliver a check after a queen here or something. But so it's starting to get a little interesting. But he plays this knight here. I believe I went ahead and just traded it off, so I didn't have to worry about it. And then I brought the other knight up. And then I just decided, I was like, you know what? After he starts threatening my queen, I was somewhat trying to get this, but it doesn't really work because both the knight and the rook are covering it. So you'd have to remove both. And so I think my plan was to try to figure out a way to remove them so that it would end up working. But in the long run, it just ended up never really materializing. And so, as you can see, we traded, and I took it with the pawn. Probably should have traded, or it actually would have. I mean, I could have taken it with the rook, but or the knight, either one. Probably with the knight first, and then when he takes, take it with the rook. Rook takes, take it with the pawn, and then have this opened up, and just have a little bit better of an edge. But having this open file already actually ends up being the icing on the cake as this game progresses. And he comes down. I come over, because it's unprotected, but I know he wants to double up, which is the whole point of coming down. A was to double up, and B to try to threaten my queen at some point, or to threaten this knight, one or the other. And so as you can see, he does end up doubling up. And I push this basically as a, no, excuse me, more of a waiting move than any other purpose. I didn't want to mess with the structure over here, and pushing this one doesn't really do much, but this one actually does because it restricts the knight from going here. Um, obviously he's not going to go here, but it just really restricted the knight a little bit more. So now his only moves are going back to here. He doesn't really have anywhere else to go. So it just made a little bit more sense. I mean, I guess if he goes here, we could take, and then take, and take with check, coming here. But, I guess it's one of those. But going forward, this ended up being where uh, now we have a little bit of initiative. And a great move that was played was this. And the reason for it is it hits this. But there's another point of the attack. And it's to kind of remove the queen from defending something. And I don't want to give it away just yet, but I was trying to remove the queen from defending a certain piece. And after moving, I implore you to take a minute and pause the video and find the winning move for black. And if you said queen takes on f2, you would be absolutely correct. Queen takes f2 check, and it is a forced mate in 3 in this position right here. So after taking, it is now mate in 2 as king has to move over. And now we sacrifice our queen, but our opponent resigns because after takes and takes, it is checkmate. Nowhere for the king to go, nowhere to block the check, and it is game over. And so that concludes the first game. Now in the next game, next one was a pretty fun one too. And so I ended up playing to London, and there was some really cool things about it because I ended up showing a friend of mine who's a little bit higher rated than me, and even he didn't see the incredible move that you'll see. And I'll also go and show you how black was supposed to defend it once we get there. So typically, one of the things I play when they start to play a structure like this, um, they don't typically play with this move being pushed so early, but one of the reasons I come here is attacking this and obviously attacking this after. But the main thing about the position is usually this pawn is here still, and usually they'll play this, and then we can play this, and then usually queen comes down, and then we can bring our knight up to not only attack the queen, but to attack the knight. And so even though it looks like we're attacking this pawn, by proxy, we were really attacking this knight all along. And we were just trying to get it to be undefended. And, you can succeed with that trap. Um, some fall into it, some don't. I haven't really had too many fall into it lately, but I used to get a lot of people with that trap. Uh, but so going forward, I was kind of looking at taking this and taking this or something, but the trap doesn't really work because this pawn is pushed, so it stops the knight from coming here. But he goes ahead and he plays over. I just go ahead and develop, knowing that I can't really do much. And so now I'm like, okay, I'm just going to take this, and knowing that my queen is a little bit misplaced, I'm wanting to, develop my other pieces and redirect the queen. So take and take, and it was probably a better move for him to take here and open up this file than it was to take with the knight and keep the structure closed. But I'm assuming he was wanting to try to castle kingside, but he never did. And so after coming here, played a beautiful move with the queen right here. Now, the reason why the queen came here is for two things. First, there's a really cool tactic that ends up happening, not quite in this position, but one move, or actually two moves from now, you'll see it. Black plays a move, and then we play ours. But the tactic, one of them that I was looking at was this, and winning a pawn. But the main thing that I saw was getting this for free. And the way to do it uh, is I implore you to take a minute and pause the video and look at the position and see how we can win that night for free. And the simple answer is rook takes pawn. After rook takes back, queen takes knight with check, king has to slide over, and we take back. So we get the pawn and the knight and a rook, all for the cost of a rook. I don't know about you, that's a pretty damn good deal. We take a pawn, he takes a rook. We take a knight, he moves over, and now we get our rook back. So we get a pawn, rook, and knight, all for the cost of this piece right here. So our opponent ends up I guess kind of seeing that there could be some sort of, I don't know, tactic to win a piece, seeing this, and so he decides to defend it. Well, now he's put this piece in the game, and if you don't see it, the only move to defend this knight is to actually defend it with the king. So imagine we take, he comes here, that's the only move that defends this knight. And so after he plays that, we can play this, and then he can take here if he wants. And then of course we can castle, imagine castle getting safe, and now we've just kind of put the king in the center. We've gotten castled, we're threatening to come here and start pushing up these pawns and doing all sorts of fun stuff on this side of the board. But I mean, the whole thing is just the fact that the king is just sitting on f7. But knowing that I showed you now and showing what I went over a moment ago, we end up playing this move. Rook takes pawn because this doesn't adequately defend it. So after rook takes, we went ahead and took with check. He takes and we take back. So we're getting our piece and we're getting the piece back. And as you can see, this and this are still undeveloped, but he moves here, we castle, and it doesn't take much longer for the game to end. I mean, it's already looking pretty bleak with just a knight. I'm sorry, a rook and a queen. Wow, we've got the extra knight on the board, and even if you look at the pawns, our structure is a little bit better, even though we've got one doubled pawn here. Doubled pawn actually is pretty useful in this position, but so you look at it and it's even on pawns. Or actually, let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Actually, we still got all of our pawns. I was thinking we were down one. We've actually got all of ours, and he's down one pawn because we stole it, and we're also up a piece. So we're up a pawn and a piece, and if you look at the engine is going to tell us that we are more or less up two pieces and a pawn, even though we're really only up one piece and a pawn. It's showing we're basically up two pieces in a pawn, and it's just because of the position that we're in. I mean, our pieces are just a little bit better placed. Our king is safe, their king isn't. And like I said, it didn't take much more. Queen came there, and knowing that there's not much of an attack left on that side, I decided to launch an attack on the other side. And we came here. Basically, I just decided, I was like, hey, I'm going to start taking these pawns, start collecting them, try to trade off queens at some point, and just uh, win the game with consolidation. And he pushes there, and I thought maybe he might do something like this, or well, obviously he can't defend it, but I figured, maybe he'll be smart, play the rook over, and then I'll have to figure out something else to do, maybe push this, or maybe this and then this. That way he takes and then try to bring this up and threaten this so that once he takes and we can take here and we get the rook for the knight, and um, or if he just moves, maybe we can figure out something because who knows. So uh, but yeah, so it was just like, okay, let's try to see what we can do. And but but anyhow, he doesn't. He actually played king here, which runs into another tactic in this game of queen takes with check, and now that rook is absolutely free, and so we did take it, and he did resign. Now it is just completely over, and as you can see, plus 13. we are just it's basically two rooks in a minor piece at this point is what the engine is saying, and that's exactly what we were. We were up, you know, a rook and a minor piece and a pawn, and it was giving us that. And it's just it was just a crazy game. It was just there were quite a few tactics, and unfortunately my opponent missed them. But the beautiful one that started the whole chain reaction though was the whole I guess you could say temporary rook sacrifice, which just ends up being a beautiful play because you look at this and you see, oh, it's defended. It's not really defended. We've got two attackers on it, and he's only got one. So we got our piece back, and we got a pawn, and we got a piece extra. So we trade a bishop for a knight, and then we trade a rook for a pawn, but we get all of that right back and then an extra knight. So it ends up being just a beautiful, beautiful play. And so looking at it, the next game was also a pretty fun one because we ended up playing a variant that of the London that I play against basically the Indian game or the King's Indian Defense, I should say, not really an Indian game. And I actually played this one just slightly different because I don't typically bring the queen here. I usually leave it here and then push here and here, and then usually the knight is here. So you figure we'll play this, this, and then usually knight takes, we take, pawn takes, and queen comes out. And I usually already have my bishop here, and usually the king is castled at that point, and it starts to look really ugly on the king side for black. But there are ways to defend it, but it can get pretty messy and pretty ugly for black pretty quick. Um, but I played it in a slightly different manner, and so the whole reason for this pawn was really to be able to bring the bishop here and let the queen protect it. So imagine this, and with the queen right behind it, it just really helps us out, and it also allows us to go ahead and castle, which we do. And one of the what would have been a great tactical moment is imagine takes, we play here, um, bishop goes back, and then we play here, and then if takes, then we've got this. So I mean, there's things in here that we could play that could lead to something if the opponent isn't ready for it. But he goes ahead and he plays that move. I just go ahead and develop. And so the whole reason of playing this was to try to catch him playing this move. Because if he plays that move, we have this, and we're just getting a piece. Because if he takes, then we're actually winning even more material. And it's now 1, 2, 3, 4 versus 3. So we're just a piece up. And a much better position for white, obviously, than black with our structure and everything. So that's something I was looking at, but of course my opponent actually, was smart and saw it. He took about 10 seconds to see it, and so we just go ahead and take, and he castles. I develop the bishop because I'm looking at a pawn. I'm basically trying to just keep an eye on the king side, and staring at this pawn isn't great because of the fact that there's two pieces defending it. So, and there's a pawn here, so putting it here doesn't really make too much sense right now. And so he goes ahead and he plays down. And so I just come back because, again, I don't want to play here and I don't want to block things off. And so he goes there. I play up. He takes. We move. We trade queens. And the funny thing is, I actually give my opponents a piece right here. Right here, tactic, just take it. It's completely free. There's nothing defending it. Um, it was just a completely oversight or a complete oversight. Um, I ended up seeing it as soon as I pushed this. I was like, "Oh shit!" I just gave my opponent a piece, and my opponent actually ended up returning the favor and just closing off the position. So now I'm completely safe. I was like, "Oh, great, I'm good. Let me just go ahead and double up." And so I went ahead and moved there, and then he just kept allowing me to play and get this knight in the game. You know, he was trying to take. It's like, okay, I wanted to come here anyway because after coming here, I'm looking at this, and you know, could be all sorts of things to look at. And so I went there again, attacking this pawn, attacking this bishop, and so he goes there. And so the whole point of me coming here was for this discovered attack. So once I take, I now have the discover check. So my bishop has X-ray vision on the king here through this piece, and I'm discovering with this and check, and then also looking at taking this, take back, but the damage has already been done because once I take it and he's in check, let's imagine. So let's say uh, I don't know. Let's say he does this, and we take it, and he goes here, and we take, and now we get a check here, force him down, and now we get this piece too. So if he's not careful, he could end up, just really losing material. And so he ends up, after threatening me here, I go ahead and I take it. I go ahead and I take my pawn. He moved over, and what I should have done was took here, let him take. Oh wait, hold on. Oh, sorry. We're in a position where I'd already pushed this pawn and forgot. But yeah, so he actually came here, which still doesn't help because he's in check. I'm attacking his rook, and there's not much that he can really do about the position, to be honest. There really isn't. He knows he has to defend it. I mean, it's already defended by this, but he ends up royally messing up. And after moving here, which was one, I guess you could say one mistake. It's probably better to move here. But takes, and then we're pinning it. But he can play this, and we can play this, and we can start to. Well, actually, this would be a horrible idea because he can just take, and then we take, and now it's he can come here and protect it. So that would be a very bad idea to move here. But um, I guess you could say we could take, and then play something like this, and now have more pieces on it. But I don't know. Probably not the best of ideas, but it would have been better for him to move into the corner. I was thinking there probably would have been something there, but I really don't see it. But going forward, as you can see, he did move here, and we took it. And this is where he made the big no-no. And it is a mate in one. Doesn't take much to show how it's a mate in one, because after this, there's nowhere for him to go. Rook controls there, bishop controls the diagonal, and the rooks are controlling each other. So it was just a really fun checkmate. Now, this game, I was playing against a much lower rated player. She is actually a friend of mine, who is kind of in the beginning stages of chess. And so I've been trying to work with her on development and trying to get her to learn to trade pieces when they need to be traded or and whatnot. But she's still got the mentality of I don't want to trade my pieces. And it's one that, in my opinion, is probably the second biggest thing holding her back, other than structure and development. I mean, she's good at development. Pawn structure, little questionable, and trading pieces is something that she doesn't like to do. Uh, so I went forward and I was actually playing a Ponziani, or attempting to play a Ponziani, and she was playing a Philidor defense, which she has no idea of what she's playing. She's just moving her pawns to open up for her pieces to get out, which, in all honesty, isn't the worst thing in the world. Let's face it, it's really not. And so and I told her in the game, I said, this is a great move because you're attacking my knight, and you're pinning it to the queen. So I can't freely move it without losing this piece. It's like, therefore, it is a great move. And again, a nice, simple developing move. And so I played here just to kick the bishop away because I was like, okay, I don't want this bishop to keep me pinned. But she played another great move for her rating, which is to just fall it back. And her rating up here is a bit misleading because uh, she hasn't played enough to show her true rating yet. So this is definitely a bit misleading. And but she did play a great move of falling back. And so I went ahead and I went here because something I wanted to do was to try and trick her into taking this, maybe something like this. And so if we imagine this, let's say we take here and she's like, oh, queen. Well, then we could deliver the checkmate, but it wouldn't be a mate because of the fact that the bishop had already moved and the king could come here. But it would be something that I would try to play if the bishop hadn't been developed. And also, but with a bishop being developed, I told her, I was like, oh, you're taking away all my fun. But again, she developed another great move, just simple development. And so now I'm kind of looking at this pawn, but I can't quite take yet because the bishop is still on it. But I guess if I wanted, I could take, but it doesn't really do much because, but I think I was looking at doing something like this, but even that doesn't work because of the fact that the bishop and the queen are on it. So yeah, there was just a lot of things that all of my tactical ideas to try to come here were being thwarted, but I was staring at this and this. So, and after playing, I took here, uh, failing to see that I could have taken here and just really pressured this knight. But a lot of people don't realize that if we go back, let's say I took here, they play here. The queen is actually okay. Never mind. I was thinking that this was an open file. I was going to say if this pawn wasn't here, let's say here or here, this queen would be trapped, nowhere to go. But I mean, I could come here, but sometimes I've seen it where this pawn is pushed already, or even if it's not, there's just no way of anything good coming. And I mean, yeah, it's pretty dire. But going forward, we trade it, and I came here again. I'm looking at this pawn. Now here, when I took, I'm trying to remember it. Yeah, I did take it with the knight. I'm pretty sure I did. The best move is actually this, and even after this, and going here, it's not a bad thing. We can come here and getting ready to find the mate, but I mean, there's obvious, well, not that, but there are obvious ways or not so obvious ways of stopping it. But in this position, yeah. So the knight here is the best way, and we take it here, force it there, and yeah, it just becomes crazy. But he actually does have to give up a knight because let's say they don't and they just play something silly, obviously mate in one, queen can't come here because bishop takes and you're giving up too much. So the knight here actually is the best move, which I wasn't sure if it was, but now we know it is the best move. But none of that actually ends up happening because after I take, she completely missed the fact that the bishop was on it. And she moved her queen away because she saw the fork, but she missed this. And so, of course, I just went ahead and took the rook. Free piece, why not? Uh, she saw a pawn, decided to grab it. I decided to go ahead and castle, try to get safe, and to look for an attack. And so I brought the rook here because I wanted to control the file just in case I ever got my pieces. It's where I could do something here. I wanted to be able to control at least one part of the escape. But I completely missed that it was able to be attacked by the bishop, so she does go ahead and get rid of it. But it honestly ends up being worse for her than for us because her bishop, truthfully, was a lot better in this position than that rook was. I mean, let's face it, it was covering a very key square here that you know that I've got two pieces already on, but now we've got the potential to put a third on it. And so she develops this pawn, keeping a nice little pawn chain over here. But while she's playing over there, we are in the process of playing over on the king side, where the king is completely open and still in the center of the board. He has not been castled yet, so it makes sense to attack the center of the board. Now, we also could have played a move like this, pinning the knight, but that just seems kind of useless. Um, but going forward, so she moves here, doing one of two things, or doing two things with that knight. One, attacking, and two, defending. And in this position, we have a great move, and that is to check, but we actually had an even better move. If we go back, instead of checking, we can just take. And once they take back, regardless of how they take back, we can check, force it over, and then I guess launch an attack somewhere. But yeah, uh, but I think it would. So mate in seven. I'm not sure I would fully see a mate in seven, and they're actually saying here was a mate in eight because they are probably saying that that was the best move. Oh no, they're saying take the knight here for free with check and take here, and we're just winning material. So I was looking at something completely different because this move just runs into a piece there. Because even if here we go here, and I mean it's still just completely crushing for white. But what actually ends up getting played was me. Did I take that? I did take it. Yes. But the big thing was the fact that he moved here instead of defending because this would have been hanging. So I moved here, and the reason for it is because now I'm setting up for the mate, and this is the only piece defending it. Now queen could come here, But she ended up playing down, which again, not a bad idea. But well, actually, it was a horrible idea. What am I saying? But queen over was really the move that she was supposed to play, in my opinion. It really should have been what she played. And after taking, we just got the beautiful checkmate. And in this one, she said she didn't want me to play a gambit, but she said it after I'd already played the England gambit, and she did accept it. But she quickly played this move without even knowing that this is the best move in the position. And the reason for it is, as you've probably seen me play the England gambit many, many, many times, this stops you from this line right here, because after take and take, if we take, they take here, and we are just significantly down material. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 pieces, and black is down to 4. So it definitely does not work out for black if we were to go into that line. And so that's why I was saying knight here, just a significantly better move. So I played here, and the whole reason of playing this was to just develop my knight, castle. I have the rook here with an open file. You know, that was just the ultimate goal. Um, None of that ends up happening, and we just play a, I guess you could say, a normal game, except for this move here, which just ends up, yeah, kind of a silly thing because we take it. She started pushing these pawns, and and really instead of pushing that pawn, she really should have just castled. And then I take, or she could have, instead of castling this way, maybe move the queen down one. Let me take here and then castle queenside. Even though this is a bit weakening on the dark side, or the dark squares over on the queen side here, the king is safe and you don't have to worry about the g pawn being gone. So couple of things she probably could have played a little bit better, but this move, like I said, is kind of a useless move when you're still trying to develop and get the king safe. And so I just kind of went into a full attack mode, and I was looking at trying to just win a piece because this piece is now just free. Can't move, can't really be defended. Imagine this and take. We come here and yeah, we're attacking it, but I don't know. Just but I was looking at just going ahead and taking here and attacking it again and just putting more pressure. But for some reason, I don't know why I didn't see it to just attack it right out the gate. But I played the queen up. He took. I went here. He goes back. And I just started playing in the center. And after they threatened this knight, that's when I said, all right, now I need to take. And then I realized how much better it was that I should have taken like 10 moves ago. I don't know if it was quite 10 moves, but it was definitely quite a few moves back that I should have played this move. And I told her, I said, you know, I really should have played this move so long ago. And for some reason, did not see the fact that it was a completely winning move. Um, you know, you've got the knight being double attacked. So you imagine knight takes. We can take, and take, and we are just coming here with a check, and oh, that was definitely a mouse slip. And we take the knight here, and we're just up, uh, you know, a queen for bishop, I guess. Um, and it's just looking like a much better, obviously a much better position for black, just due to the fact that we've actually still got the queen on the board, but you know, there's a lot to it. But yeah. But that was something that could have been looked at. And so, like I said, we ended up playing it, but nothing really materialized too quickly. But after playing it, and they played that, we went ahead and took the knight. He took there, and we went, or I should say, she took there, we took here. And the whole thing about it is really in this position, once we take, yeah, I mean, it's the best move is to just go ahead and take the knight. Because, I mean, there's nothing else that can be done. And you're just, yeah, it's just starting to get really, really, really ugly. And now we can move this bishop. And so, and that's exactly what we did. We just brought the bishop back down a couple of squares. And the bishop threatening my rook, but kind of wanted to move it anyway. And now we put it in a better location, right underneath the queen, so that we could play something like this. And after this, we could take with check and just really get these pieces rolling and just get them going. And so they took. I went here. They go back. I pushed up and just kind of kept trying to get some fun moves in. And I knew that she was going to check me here, or I'm sorry, not check me here, but I guess you could say rook check with the bishop. I knew she was going to. I don't know what in me was saying that she was going to do this, but I had already looked at, okay, if she attacks the rook, like then the queen is going to come up, and the king is not going to have too many safe places to go. And that's exactly what ended up happening. We came here with the check. And after coming here, because I started to calculate how she was probably going to move, but I was also calculating, how I was going to move. And so I started saying, okay, well, let's go ahead and figure it out. And so I said knight check. And I was already looking at sacrificing material to win this game because let's face it, the rook and queen alone with the king over on this edge of the board with pawns and a king, more than enough material to win the game. And so I'd actually already looked at the sacrifice and bringing the queen back down. I don't think I could have done it sooner. Yeah, I couldn't do it sooner because the rook wasn't open. So after checking and giving it up and coming here, I'm forcing the king to do one of two things. Either go here or take here. And both of them actually lead to checkmates. If you turn on the engine, it's a mate in three regardless of what the king does. If the king goes here, then we can push up. And after this, we take, and now it's a mate in one because we just simply take here and can't go anywhere. Everything is protected. Queen covers this, covers that, covers this. And pawn, of course, covers this. And so going forward, she actually, after taking, takes, did she actually go there? Let's see, who was that? Beautiful Baguette Beginning. Appreciate the follow. Thank you so much. Okay, we can definitely do it. And after playing this, but something else I was looking at that ended up not getting played was after this. I was actually looking at this, and playing something like I forget what I was actually looking at here. I'm trying to remember the exact thing that I saw, but I think it was this. Yeah, I think it was just this, and checkmating that way. But like I said, it ended up. I think she ended up losing on time, but this would have definitely been a fun one. But the last game that was really a lot of fun. I actually played it on a low level account that I was goofing off on last night, and was originally going to try to play like a Ponziani, but ended up going into something completely different, and ended up playing more like an Italian game, and just kind of played some decent structure per se, but just wanting to, as you can see here, the whole idea was just adding all these attackers and defenders onto the piece, and at the same time having this discovered. But one of the things I had missed was after taking and taking and taking, that the queen can actually take here. Um, but we can actually still win material just due to the fact that after all of that, it's a check and the rook gets this piece. So ends up being a funny thing. So, but something I had looked at was after playing it was seeing that coming here and that he's just down a piece, and the opponent is actually in fact down a piece. But I was also kind of calculating something else entirely. But now that I'm looking at the position, I don't think what I was originally looking at even made sense. Um, but yeah, so we just took and traded down a whole lot. But what I did was I went ahead and I just took here. And the reason for it was after taking and taking and taking, I'm just seeing that this knight is just completely hanging because I realized after taking here, the knight takes back and now it's not free anymore. So why not just remove it and then let him initiate the queen trade and we'll take back. And then he just gave us a couple of pawns and then he gave me a rook and resigned the game. But the tactic was really just looking at the nice big trade and just understanding that in this position, you just have to understand that when looking at things like this, how to go about doing it properly, because knowing that the queen takes is the best move, it also could not seem like the best move, but because most people are just going to be like, oh, well, we'll just trade and it's just going to be a big fancy trade. And it is if you don't play this move. If you do play this move, then you're up a piece. If you don't, then it's the same. And we played that move. And of course, they took, and we took back. And that ended up being the great piece, or the great moves. But we did have a guy wanting to challenge us. So feel free to send me the challenge.